Hello, everyone, and welcome to anyone who may be new to us, and welcome back to those who have joined us previously. We're so glad that you're here. Today, we'll be discussing a great topic, especially since we just switched our clocks and lost an hour of sleep, but it's about getting a good night's sleep. And we have an educational and entertaining session in store for you today. Our presenter today is Brian Sanderoff. Brian is a pharmacist that used to own and operate 2 pharmacies in downtown Baltimore. After practicing traditional pharmacy for 10 years, he came to the realization that dispensing maintenance medicines for chronic diseases wasn't actually helping. The diseases were not really going away, as evidenced by the fact that people had to continue to take their medicines. At this point, Brian began a journey of exploration that led him to further explore health and disease in a completely different way. The philosophy that he has developed comes from a unique blend of scientific data, practical experience involving thousands of patients in his private practice, coupled with an ability to understand how nature works and how better to live in sync with nature. Brian is the guiding force behind the Wellbeing Healing Center and Holistic Pharmacy. At the center, they specialize in helping people better understand the true cause of disease and discomfort and empowers them to create positive change and ultimately take control of their own good health. I encourage you to sit back, relax, and listen with an open mind. While some of the information you hear today may fly in the face of conventional wisdom, Brian does a great job of educating the audience, me included, on this issue. Just a few housekeeping issues. You will be muted during the webinar, but you have the ability to ask questions during the presentation, and we encourage you to do so. Just type your question in the question box, and we will be able to see it. We will try to get to as many questions as possible within the time frame of the webinar. In addition, you are always welcome to get in touch with Brian through the Wellbeing GPS website for more questions. Just go to www.wellbeinggps.com and click on the Contact Us button. Additionally, our live webinars are recorded and will be available along with a PowerPoint presentation for you to share or to enjoy at your convenience. Again, go to www.wellbeinggps.com, your navigation tool to being well. And in just a moment, I will turn it over to Brian Sanderoff.
Hi, everybody, and I'm glad you all took the time out today to join me. We're going to talk about sleep, about how to get a good night's sleep and how to do it naturally. I always mention that as we're going through this, if you have questions, don't hesitate to type them in there into the little question box. As soon as you type it in, I see it, and then I'll answer it as soon as it's appropriate to do so within the presentation. And again, lots of information here. Don't be shy about calling me or emailing me anytime if you have questions or if you need help in applying this sort of information to you as an individual person, because we're all individuals, we're all in different situations, and so there may be some wrinkles that will apply to one person and not another. So again, don't hesitate to do that. Email me, brian@wellbeinggps.com, or you can contact me right through the website. So today's topic, getting a good night's sleep. So I'm sorry to do it this way, and I try not to make things too technical, and yet we have to sometime. And so I'm just going to spend a little bit of time helping you understand what's going on biochemically, biologically, physiologically with sleep, because it's important to understand this, to understand how important sleep is and better ways to do it. So first question is, why is it that we sleep in the first place? And scientists for years and years, and even today, don't really understand it completely, but there are a couple things that we do understand. There is, even though it may seem like when we sleep, it's like downtime and it's wasted time and we're not doing anything, the truth is that underneath the surface an awful lot is going on. Many physiological processes are going on, including 2 very important ones. 1, secretion of growth hormone, and 2, free radical scavenging. So let's talk about the growth hormone at first. Growth hormone is known as the anti-aging hormone, and it helps in a lot of different things in the body. 1, tissue regeneration. 2, liver regeneration. 3, muscle building. Also helps with the breakdown of fats and fat stores. It also is very important for blood sugar regulation. So, in other words, it helps convert fat to muscle. And if you are not sleeping, and if you're not sleeping at the right time, your body cannot make growth hormone. And when that happens, you cannot do all of those things that I had just mentioned. The other thing is free radical scavenging. So here's what happens. During the day, free radicals will accumulate in your brain, and then they get removed during sleep. People that are chronically sleep deprived, what happens is that leads to accelerated brain aging and neuron damage, the nerve cells getting damaged. And so if you think about it this way, and this is really kind of interesting, if you think about it this way, sleep is actually a very potent antioxidant. Of course, we talk about things like vitamin E and vitamin C as being antioxidants. Well, how about the idea that sleep is actually an antioxidant? So what are sleep requirements? Well, the truth is it's going to vary from person to person. You will see things that say, oh, you should get this amount of sleep. And I know that you know people that say, oh, I can function on 5 hours of sleep a night. That may be the appearance of functioning, but actually it's certainly not optimal for what your body wants. And so it's going to vary depending. If you're a 1-year-old, you need about 14 hours of sleep every day. A 5-year-old, it's down to 12 hours of sleep. Adults need somewhere between 7 and 9 hours of sleep every night. And I also just like to note a couple things. One, women seem to need slightly more sleep than men. And elderly seem to require less. And I say seem on that because it probably isn't that they require less. It's just that they have a tendency to nap or drowse or doze during the day. And so they may not get all of those hours of sleep at the same time or all in one fell swoop. So here's a little primer on sleep physiology. There's 2 kinds of sleep here. There's non-REM sleep, and REM stands for rapid eye movement, not the rock group that you just saw their songs flash up there for a second. And the non-REM sleep, it comes in 4 stages. So when you first fall asleep, you're in stage 1, and then you progress to stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. And each progressive stage gets you deeper and deeper into sleep, and your brain waves get slower and slower, and you become harder to arouse. And so stage 1, very light sleep, brain function and brain waves are not that low, and then as you go down into sleep, it gets lower and lower. Then you get into rapid eye movement sleep, and this is where dreaming occurs. And so in this stage, you will see a sudden increase in brain activity. And there's some people that think that really what's happening is you're kind of downloading the day's activities, putting them in files or where they belong from the day. And in your first cycle of sleep, that first REM period will last about 5 to 10 minutes. You go through these cycles where you go 1, 2, 3, 4, then into REM sleep, then back into one of those other stages, 2 or 3 or 4, and then back into REM sleep. And you go through these cycles, they last about 90 minutes, and you'll have, most people will repeat that cycle 5 to 6 times every night. And as you go through those cycles and you're getting more towards the morning, you spend more time in the REM area of sleep. This is why it feels like you dream more closer to when you wake up in the morning. It's actually, you're in that time more. And in that last cycle before you wake up in the morning, you actually can spend an hour in the REM area. So are you not sleeping well? Well, I got to tell you, you are not alone in that. Some 30% of us have some sort of sleep issue. 10% of us actually having it chronically, meaning that it goes on all the time. And I also like to note that 50% of sleep issues are caused by psychological factors. There's some other physical factors. We'll go through that as well. But oftentimes stress, what we're thinking about for tomorrow, blah, 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 is a big part of this for many of us. And this also speaks to the fact that the over-the-counter and prescription sleep medicine categories are huge sellers in the pharmacies. And this is the reason why, because so many of us are suffering from them. Let's see, I got a question here from Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. Why do women need more? Probably has to do with physiology. Women's bodies work a little bit different, and their hormonal set is a little bit different than men, and so that causes a cycle or a requirement that needs a little bit more. So there are generally two kinds of problems with sleep. There's the kind where you have a problem falling asleep, and you have a problem staying asleep. And you'll see there's a little overlap there. There are many people who have problems with both of those things. And so we're going to talk about solutions to both of that, whether you're having a hard time falling asleep or whether you fall asleep just fine, but then you can't stay asleep during the night. We'll talk about that and how to fix those things. So, but let's talk first about what the negative effects are of not getting proper sleep. All of these are facts. If you're not getting proper sleep, and again, it doesn't necessarily mean that you aren't sleeping, but you're not either, one, sleeping at the right time, or two, you're not getting into those deeper levels of sleep where a lot of regeneration and repair happens, then this is the result. Number one, weakening of the immune system. And this has been known for a long time. Actually, a study that looked at nurses that work night shift have higher incidence of breast cancer. We all know that if we don't get enough sleep the next day, we feel like we're more susceptible. And then, someone comes through with the flu, we may end up getting it, whereas if we had a proper night's sleep, we wouldn't. Actually, studies show in laboratory animals that when they are sleep deprived, they actually, ones that have tumors, the tumors actually grow quicker, 2 to 3 times quicker. It leads to sugar issues. As I talked about, that growth hormone plays a very important role with regulation of blood sugar. And so there are many people who are thought to be diabetic or pre-diabetic that the issue has to do with not getting appropriate sleep. It affects memory, focus, concentration. That's no surprise. Anybody that hasn't gotten a good night's sleep the next day at work, you're fuzzy. You know that doesn't work right. Heart disease, ulcers, gut function, mood, depression, anxiety, all those things are affected by sleep. And there was a study that showed that actually with sleep deprivation comes a 3-time greater risk of all-cause mortality, meaning that you're much more likely to die. I kind of laugh about that because every one of us is 100% likely to die. I can promise you that. But we're talking about premature death. We're talking about dying before nature would have intended for you, or of natural causes. So, what are the causes of sleep disturbances? Well, there's a bunch of different ones, and I want to go over them just to sort of again review and make sure that you think about this thing. First one I like to talk about is called sleep apnea, and I know that we've heard about it more and more. We certainly know people who have that funny machine that they hook themselves up to, but I want to talk a little bit about it because it is much more prevalent than anybody wants to give it credit for, and it's something that should be paid attention to. So number one, it happens because of a narrowing of the airway, and so either because of the position of your head, or because of poor muscle tone, or most likely because of excess weight, there's a cutting off of the airway. And what actually happens is snoring can occur and occurs in many people. Those two things, snoring and sleep apnea, are not mutually exclusive. There are people that snore that don't have sleep apnea, and there are people that have sleep apnea that don't snore. But usually the two of them go together. And then you go through these periods of not breathing, and literally you don't breathe, and that's very stressful to the body. And it also causes this frequent sudden arousal, which means that regardless of what sleep stage that you're in, all of a sudden you come up to like the stage 1 of the non-REM sleep where you're almost awake. And that's your body's way of saying, hey, you, breathe. It's interesting though because many people who have sleep apnea deny it. And it's not like they're saying, oh, I think it's weird to have sleep apnea, so I don't want to admit to it. It's because they don't realize it, because they're not realizing that they're constantly waking up and going through these periods of non-breathing at night. So again, risk factors are excess weight. I also put dairy in there because dairy has a protein in it called casein that the human body cannot break down. And when you can't break it down, your body tries to get rid of it. So drinking dairy or eating dairy products contributes to a lot of upper respiratory congestion, a lot of mucus flow. And again, if you think about the airway and the narrowing of that airway, it can lead to or exacerbate sleep apnea. And I've got patients who have sleep apnea, got off the dairy completely, and they don't have sleep apnea anymore. They don't snore, they sleep better, all that kind of stuff. So there's a little thing about denials. And so again, many people would say, no, I don't have sleep apnea, because they don't realize it. And the only way to know for sure is to be tested and or observed. And so those of you who sleep in a bed with other people, you can ask those other people. Oftentimes they'll have feedback for you, and they'll tell you that, yeah, you go through those periods, and then you snort, and then you sort of kind of wake up and then roll over and then go through it again. Or you can get some testing done. Now the testing can be expensive. Insurance may pay for it depending on what's going on with your health, and whether your doctor is willing to write a prescription for it. But you can do a sleep study where you actually go to another place, you sleep in a bed, and they hook you up and they video you, and then they determine, and they look at your oxygenation of your body and your sleep patterns and everything. But you can actually do this at home as well. There's actually a program that you can download for your computer where you can literally videotape yourself sleeping, and it will record the sounds. You may be surprised what comes out of you sound-wise, and you'll be able to watch yourself sleep, and you'll see yourself coming through these periods of almost waking up arousal. Stop breathing, and then shock up, and then then you're awake, and that will convince you. And I think it's important to really pay attention to this. It is tremendously stressful for your body to not oxygenate properly. I mean, that just makes common sense. That's why we breathe all the time, whether we're conscious of it or not. And if you're going through periods of not breathing at night, it's tremendously stressful to your body. And so I have patients that are diabetic or not diabetic but have sugar issues, and they monitor their sugar, and they eat properly, and they don't eat too late at night, and they go to bed, and they, right before they bed, they measure their blood sugar, and it's perfect, and they wake up in the morning and their blood sugar is sky high. This is one of the reasons why. Same thing with blood pressure. I've got patients who are completely controlled with their blood pressure throughout the day, but first thing in the morning they wake up, their blood pressure is elevated. That's when it should be the lowest, because you've just gone through this period of relaxation. And it's because it's tremendously stressful, and almost 201, those people have sleep apnea and have to have it addressed one way or another. I'll also point out that sleeping pills and alcohol actually worsen the periods of this paused breathing at night. Okay, so what are other causes of sleep disturbances? Hold on, I've got a little question coming in here, and that's, what's the best time to go to bed? Okay, good question. I appreciate that. So, what nature intended is for you to be up, soon before the sun comes up, and to go to sleep soon after the sun goes down. That's what nature intends for you. And you have to understand that when you don't get sleep at that time, you're not in sync with nature, and you're not in sync with your circadian rhythms. That's important. And so what you want to do is try to get to bed earlier if possible. If you get 7 hours of sleep at night, and that 7 hours of sleep is from 1 a.m. to 8 a.m., you will not benefit the same as if it's from 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. Same 7 hours, but a completely different chemistry that happens. Key time for your body to regenerate and repair liver and to make growth hormone is from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. And there are some people that feel that every hour of sleep during that period is worth 2 hours any other time. So I'm a big proponent of getting to bed earlier. And you can, and thanks for that question, I appreciate it, you can reprogram your lives these days so that you don't have to stay up so late. So if you stay up till 11 because there's a favorite TV show or playing on the computer or whatever, you can DVR that, or you can play with your friends on Facebook at 5 in the morning as well. Okay, good question. Thank you for that. So what are the other causes of sleep disturbances? Well, there's all these environmental things. And there's this idea that's called sleep hygiene, and we're going to spend a little time here because this is really important. And these are the nuggets from today's presentation that every single one of you can do that will be helpful for you in being able to sleep better. And I would encourage you to pay attention to this and to try to make some changes and see what happens with how you're sleeping. So number one is you need to be sleeping in a completely dark environment. Completely dark. And the reason is because your pineal gland, which is sort of like at your third eye, it's in your brain right between your eyes and a little bit above where your eyes are. It makes some very important hormones and chemicals, one of them called melatonin. And melatonin is the hormone that gets you ready to sleep. That's the thing that helps you settle down and get to sleep. And it needs to be dark for your pineal gland to make melatonin. And here's the kicker, though. Your pineal gland will detect light even if your eyes are closed. So if you're sleeping with the TV on, or if you've got the shades open and lights from outside, or even the light that comes from your alarm clock, all of those things can interfere with and maybe even completely stop your pineal gland from being able to make melatonin. And so you want to have dark out shades, you want to turn off everything you can electrical or cover it over. Take a little towel and cover it over the TV so the back of the light, the light from the back of the TV, and certainly, night lights and all that kind of stuff, not a good idea. So number one, try to sleep in complete darkness. Number two, temperature is very important. When you sleep, your core body temperature goes down. And it happens over a period of time, and it gets to its lowest about 4 hours after you go to sleep. And so if you had the temperature in your room above 68 degrees, you're trying to warm up your body, and that's a signal to your body that you should be awake, not asleep. And so you want to control the temperature in your bedroom, and you want it to be at 68 or below. There's one exception to this, though, and that is that if your feet are too cold, you have a hard time sleeping. And there's actually a study showing people that sleep with socks on actually sleep better. Or people that have problems sleeping, put socks on, you will sleep better. The feet are the furthest away from your core, and so they may get even colder as your core temperature goes down. And so that's another little simple trick that you can try. Here's one that I got some comment about earlier today. That is, the bed is for sleeping. So here's what happens, and this goes back to sleep hygiene, this idea of sleep hygiene. Here's what happens is that you get into your head certain activities happening in bed, and if some of those activities are too stimulating, then it's hard to settle down. So you should not be eating, you should not be watching TV, you should not be reading while you're in bed, because all of those activities are training your brain to be more awake than settling down and getting to sleep. And you want to train your body so that when you get into bed, it's sleep time. Now, like I said, we all know there may be some other activities that are happening in the bed as well, and that's okay for them to happen because, that helps you sleep anyways. So try not to do eating, reading, watching TV, that kind of stuff. We really shouldn't have TVs in our bedrooms anyways. Okay, pre-bed activities before you go to bed. There are some activities that you should do and some that you don't. So do's and don'ts. Let's talk about the don'ts. Don't do things that are too stimulating. Don't watch, a shoot-'em-up movie, that gets you all up. That's not going to be conducive to you getting a good night's sleep. Don't read murder mysteries. Don't exercise too close to bedtime. Don't eat too close to bedtime. Those are all things that make it much harder for you to sleep. What are the do's? Well, number one, activities that are calming. Take a nice bath. Have a nice warm cup of herbal tea. If you're going to read something that's inspirational and calming, or other activities that are like that. It's a great time before you go to bed to journal, and especially like doing a gratitude journal to remind yourself of all the things in life that you that you have gratitude for. Another thing I really like to point out, in our society today, one thing we don't do very well is ritual. And ritual is very important to demarcate one time from another time in life. And you can do that on a daily basis as well. And again, it's about training yourself. And so if you have a bedtime ritual that you are consistent with every night, and then you go to bed, you'll start to train your body that when that activity happens, that's when it's time to go to bed. And you'll find that it makes it much easier to go to sleep. And be consistent with it. Also try to be consistent with what time you go to bed. And if you go to bed too late, slowly back that off. If you normally, go to bed at 12 or 1, I doubt that tonight you're going to say, all right, I'm going to go to bed at 10, and you're going to be successful at doing that. Slowly back it off by 15-minute increments every week or so. Before you know it, then you'll have it back down to where it should be. And I also put on here separate bedrooms. And it's really interesting because I had a patient a few weeks ago who embarrassed to tell me that her and her husband sleep in different rooms. She wouldn't tell anybody else. She was afraid her friends would judge her and think that there was something wrong with them in their marriage because they slept in separate bedrooms. And I told her nothing was further from the truth. And actually, it's a good idea. If your partner is keeping you up, or you're keeping your partner up because of your legs are kicking around, or sleep apnea, or snoring, or different schedules, or whatever, sometimes they're sleeping fine, but your husband or your wife maybe has to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to work, and you don't have to get up till later. Them getting up disturbs you. Sleep in separate bedrooms. It is not an indication of anything wrong with your relationship, and in fact, maybe just the opposite. Because I promise you that your relationship, your ability to be present in that relationship, your mood, your energy will all be better when you're sleeping better. And that will do nothing but make your relationship better. So consider that if that's an issue, and experiment with it. And you make games out of it. You can go visit your partner in their bedroom, and they can come visit you in yours. And, it sounds like it could be more fun. All right, other causes of sleep disturbances. I just want to mention real quickly restless leg syndrome, because this is an issue that people, again, don't realize. There are many people who have restless leg syndrome that don't even realize that they are kicking in the middle of the night. And this can happen for a lot of different reasons. If it's usually cramping in your lower legs, most often than not, it has to do with a lack of certain minerals, potassium and magnesium. And there's a great product that's called potassium magnesium aspartate by a company called Pure Encapsulations. A couple capsules at bedtime really fixes that cramping and oftentimes the restless leg. Sometimes it also has to do with stress and how your body's responding to stress and other psychological or emotional issues that are going on, and it's worth exploring. I have a ton of patients who have restless leg syndrome, and they go to their doctors, and the doctor wants to put them on medicines that are not really for this. They're for other things that will affect or may affect nerve function. And I just hate to see that happen because it's not really addressing what the underlying issue is. And then the other thing I just want to mention again is that these psychological issues are important to address. If when you go to bed you can't settle down because you're thinking about what happened today or what's going to happen tomorrow, that needs to be addressed. That needs to be addressed. And there's all sorts of ways to do it. One of the practitioners here in our center is a clinical hypnotherapist, and she makes these amazing guided meditation and self-hypnosis tapes, CDs or downloads, and then you listen to one of those as you go to bed, and it helps you get into that proper zone to be able to sleep, or you listen to it before you go to bed. And remember I said about ritual, this is a really good ritual to get into. So you might want to check out more information about that on the website. I'll also mention to you that on the website I'm about to talk about the supplements and how, the different tools that we use. And on our website, wellbeinggps.com, if you go to the health conditions section, protocols, there's one there for sleep, and you can read all about this and supplements and things that could be helpful for you. So regular medicine solutions to these problems are just not good solutions. There's over-the-counter medicines, and really they're one way or another antihistamines, actually. I don't know if everybody realizes this, but histamine is actually a very important brain chemical. And even though your body will release histamine in response to an allergy, histamine is also the hormone that gets you up in the morning, or one of the hormones that gets you up. It keeps your energy up. And so antihistamines cut down on your brain's ability to make histamine, not just in response to allergies, but normal. And that's why you get drowsiness from them. So over-the-counter sleep medicines usually are some sort of antihistamine. And diphenhydramine or Benadryl, the generic is diphenhydramine, that's usually in one of them. And so if you look at Tylenol PM or whatever, usually it has that in it. And you may get sleep from it, but it's not a restorative sleep. It's not the sleep that gets you into the stage 3 and stage 4 and then into the REM sleep. And so you sleep, or you have the appearance of sleeping, but you wake up and you're not any more refreshed. And you're tired during the day, just like if you had sleep apnea and not realizing it. So those are not good answers. And there's prescription medicines, and the same thing. They either monkey with brain chemistry one way or another, or help increase certain brain chemicals, which may be helpful in some respect. But if you look at the prescribing data, the prescribing information for every one of the sleep medicines, the prescription sleep medicines, you will see that they are approved for the short-term management of sleep problems. Short-term, and are not to be used for weeks and weeks and weeks. And you know how it is. Doctors prescribe these things, and then you're on them for the rest of your life. And it is a huge mistake, because you're having the appearance of getting sleep, but your body is not regenerating, repairing, and eventually they don't work. And there's another issue with these medicines as well, and that has to do with sleep confidence. The confidence that you actually have the ability to go to sleep. And if anyone in here has taken these medicines or had chronic problems with sleep, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't sleep well, and you get it into your head that you need that pill to be able to sleep. And without that pill, you can't sleep, regardless of what's going on physiologically. So they're just not good answers. All right, I have a couple questions here, so let me address them. Could iron deficiency cause night waking? I've had trouble sleeping through the night for over a year. Just recently found out my iron levels are low, though not technically anemic. Possibility, if that were, I think that the link would be that if your iron is low, then you're not oxygenating your system as well as you could. Now, generally speaking, it's better to be low iron than high iron. Iron is a bad guy when it comes to heart disease and when it comes to cancer. But you can go too far with that as well, and so it's worth addressing and to see what happened. If you are going to take an iron supplement, which I imagine that your doctor may have told you to do, ferrous sulfate, which is the one that they tell you to take, is the worst form of iron to take. Your body does not absorb it very well, and because of that, you have to take a fairly high dose, and it causes stomach bleeding and constipation and all this other stuff. And so you want iron that's more like nature provides. And so there's a product that's available that's called Easy Iron, and it's a different form of iron, much lower dose. Your body absorbs it much more efficiently, doesn't cause any of the gut problems, and that's what I recommend for you. And see if that affects your sleep at all. Here's a question also. What about using prescription meds for a few weeks to reset a habit of night waking per doctor's recommendations? That is a possibility. However, my experience is that then you get it into your head that you need that sleep medicine to be able to sleep properly. It's the rare patient that I've had exposure to that has been able to use it that way and then get off of it and not have it anymore. Because you go in these cycles, and the cycles get closer and closer together until you're just in one big cycle of not being able to sleep. Thank you for that question. There's another one, and that says, is there such a thing as too much sleep for an adult? At what point does too much become bad for health, or does it? I'm talking about natural sleep without medicines or supplements. And the answer is yes. You actually can have too much sleep. For adults, it's thought to be, and I say thought to be because there's no hard and fast rule with this, but it's thought to be that if you are getting or requiring more than 9 hours of sleep, that could be a problem, an indication of other things going on, including brain chemistry imbalances, depression, something else. And yes, you actually can get too much. Thanks for that question. I appreciate it. All right, so let's see. So supplements to the rescue. If those over-the-counter and prescription meds are not really good solutions for you, well, what are some good solutions? Well, the answers come from understanding a few things. First thing is understanding brain chemistry. So serotonin is a very important brain chemical, and we should understand how important it is because that's what gets us into that deeper sleep. When serotonin levels are where they should be, you get into the rapid eye movement sleep and the lower stages, the stage 3 and stage 4 non-REM sleep, more easily and more appropriately. And so, let's see, there's a question here. What's that? There's an error to the link for supplements in my sleep article. Okay, well, thanks for looking at that, and I will make sure that that's working properly as soon as I get off this webinar. And thank you for letting me know about that. I appreciate it. Okay, so if your serotonin levels are low, hallmark of not being able to sleep well, and a hallmark of people that report not dreaming or not having remembered having dreams, even if they don't remember what that dream is. So serotonin is very, very important. And if serotonin levels are low, it can be for a lot of different reasons. One of them has to do with the production of serotonin. In your body, in your brain, you will take into your body an amino acid that's called tryptophan. Tryptophan is an amino acid that's in all animal products. It's in higher doses in things like turkey or milk when it's warmed. And your body will convert tryptophan into a couple other chemicals and eventually will go to serotonin. And so there's also other factors or cofactors that are needed for the production of serotonin. One of them is the active form of folic acid. And to me, this is really fascinating. So folic acid is a simple B vitamin, and there are about a third of the population that does not have the ability, because of a funny genetic quirk, maybe not so funny, that they can't convert folic acid into the active form, which is called 5-MTHF, methyl tetrahydrofolate. Big, long, fancy name, which means it's the activated form of folic acid. And it's that 5-MTHF form of folic acid that's needed for your body to actually make serotonin. And so there's a third of the population that can't convert it. More than a third of the population does not do the conversion because of their guts not functioning properly, because of stress or whatever. So what I'm telling you is there's a good 70+ percentage of percent of us that are not able to efficiently convert folic acid into its active form. And those people cannot make serotonin as efficiently as their body wants. And so you actually can take a supplement. Now, if you take folic acid, it doesn't fix the problem because you can't convert it. But there's actually a supplement that's called 5-MTHF. It's the active form of folic acid. And for those people who are not converting well, and that's the reason why serotonin, production is down, it's almost like turning a light switch. And you get these people higher blood levels of the active form of folic acid, and sleep gets better, as well as other things that are related to serotonin levels, including anxiety, depression, OCD, sleeping disorders, all sorts of things, eating disorders. So that's a simple thing to do. And you can get that over the counter, and oftentimes I recommend 5 milligrams of 5-MTHF for my patients that seem like they're dealing with serotonin issues, and it makes them better. And a recent article was reported in, a study was reported about in newspapers, including the Wall Street Journal, I think, recently, that doctors are using this form of folic acid to help make their patients that are on prescription antidepressants more effective, and it's working well. So there's also precursors. As I said, you could take tryptophan as a supplement, and that eventually will lead to serotonin. I say eventually because tryptophan has to be actively transported into the brain, and for some people that doesn't happen efficiently either. But in the body, your body converts tryptophan into 5-hydroxytryptophan, also known as 5-HTP, and then your body converts 5-HTP into 5-HT, which is also known as serotonin. So you can take 5-HTP as a supplement, and it's much more effective at helping to raise serotonin levels. And studies have shown that using 5-HTP at bedtime, very good, and increases your your time in REM sleep significantly. And again, that's regeneration and repair. That's your body, your brain getting that antioxidant that it needs, if that makes sense to you. So let's see. What else there? So there's other brain chemicals. Melatonin, very important. It's made by the pineal gland, and again, it's one of the initiators of sleep. And it is very effective for people that have low levels of melatonin. It won't be effective if you don't, but the only way to know is to try to supplement with it. So typically 3 milligrams. There's a product by Life Extension that we use. I like it because it's 3 milligrams and it's sustained release, so it'll last a bit. And so sometimes people that wake up, helps them get back to sleep or helps stopping the wake up at night. And then I also just want to mention GABA, G-A-B-A. That's another brain chemical that is a calming neurotransmitter. Some neurotransmitter brain chemicals are lifting and some are calming. And GABA is a calming one. And in fact, some of the prescription medicines, what they try to do is increase your GABA levels. Well, you can actually take GABA as a supplement over the counter, specific brand called Pharma GABA, P-H-A-R-M-A GABA, and there's a bunch of brands that make it. The one we use is by Thorne. And that's a great supplement to use as well. What other supplements to the rescue? Well, there's this whole idea of clearing cortisol from your blood. Cortisol is the hormone of stress. So when you're under stress, your body is creating cortisol. That makes it harder for you to go to sleep. Or when you wake up at night, it's hard to settle back down. And sometimes that waking up at night happens because of a cortisol spike. And so we do some things that are supportive to the adrenal. And we do that with herbs that are known as adaptogens. They calm your adrenal response to stress. There's another supplement which is called, we call it CTH because we don't like to try to say casein tryptic hydrolysate. So this is an ingredient that helps clear cortisol from your blood quickly, within a matter of 5 or 10 minutes. And so you can use this during the day for anxiety, for panic. If you're going into a situation that you know is going to be anxiety causing for you, meaning that if driving on the beltway or the highway is something that drives you nuts, or if you're about to do a big speech and you know you get nervous, heart starts racing, it's because of cortisol that all that happens. You chew on one of these tablets and it'll calm that pretty quickly. Well, at bedtime, this will help clear cortisol so you can settle down quickly or more quickly. And there's a really good product by a company called Metagenics, which is called Benasom, which is a combination of melatonin and CTH and an herb that helps calm you as well. And then also the other thing I want to point out is that there's this very specific fat called phosphatidylserine. Again, we like initials, so we call it PS. And that also has been shown to be very helpful at clearing cortisol at night. So there's a product that we have that's called Cortisol Manager that I like to use a lot that has some herbs and some PS in it, which will help calm the cortisol levels and help you sleep. The third area where supplements come to the rescue are the herbs. And so there's a whole bunch of different herbs. Valerian, passion flower, lemon balm, hops, there's a whole bunch of them. And there's a whole bunch of different products out there that are combinations of herbs and nutrients and or some of these brain chemicals, melatonin, 5-HTP, that may be appropriate for different people depending on their situations. Valerian is an herb that has been studied extensively to help with sleep. I don't like to use it alone. My experience clinically is that it can cause a little bit of a hangover feeling in the morning. And so it's completely safe. There's no issues there. And I like to see it used in combination with other things. Passion flower is another one. Very good herb. Helps. Long history. Traditionally, the Aztecs used to use it. One of the ingredients from passion flower actually was used during World War II as a truth serum. Lemon balm, really good herb that helps calm, and very good for sleep. For me, occasionally at night, I will take lemon balm and cortisol manager together before I go to sleep and really get a high quality sleep that way. Hops is another one. Probably don't want to try to get that from beer though, because you want to remember about how alcohol can, affect the sleep apnea part. Let's see, another question. What about vitamin B12's role, if any, with sleep? B12 is very important for brain cells and nerve cells to communicate with each other. So having B12 levels elevated is very important, especially as we age, especially for brain function. However, it's also energizing. So I would not take B12 at night to go to sleep. Taking B12 in the morning when you wake up will help you energy-wise and may help with sleep later, but I wouldn't use it right before bedtime. That would probably be opposite. Thanks for the question. Appreciate it. All right, so let's wrap it all up. Number one message, sleep is vital. It's not a waste of time. You're not missing anything in the world by not sleeping. by sleeping instead of not sleeping, and in fact, just the opposite. So much goes on underneath the surface that is very important. Too many of us do not get enough sleep, either because of our lifestyles or because of issues that we have, and we need to concentrate on it. It should be thought of just like a nutrient. Your need for sleep should be thought of just like your need for water, just like your need for food, and all the vitamins and nutrients that you get from your food. Number two is the over-the-counter medicines and the prescription medicines. They do not really work, even though sometimes they can give you the appearance of it. It's just the opposite, and you do not want to go there. Number three is there are many, many tools. All the things that I talked about, sleep hygiene, all sorts of herbs and nutrients, and I do encourage you to explore further, and do not hesitate to call or email with specific questions about you so that you can find out exactly what would be useful for you. Also, don't forget to go to the website. All of these webinars are recorded, and so past ones are recorded as well, including those three, the last three that you did there, and other ones. And new ones will be added, even if they aren't being done live. Sometime very soon, I'm going to add a webinar that you could also call it a podcast if you wanted. We're going to add one that's called The Essential 6, and it talks about the 6 supplements that I take every day and the reason why and how they affect aging and health. Very, very important. And don't forget to share this information with friends, colleagues, family members, people you like, people you don't like. Maybe you'll like them better if they're sleeping better or if you're sleeping better. And so this is what's coming up in the future as well. Next month we're doing one on inflammation. Next month allergies. Next month osteoporosis. So thank you so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys being part of this. And I look forward to talking to you guys and seeing you again here in the future. And I'm going to hand it back to Cheryl.
Thank you, Brian. As always, informational. I always learn so much when I listen to your webinars. Even if I listen to the same one twice in a row, I always pick up something new that's very helpful to me. And I hope, hopefully, everyone feels the same way and got some great information. Of course, you could always contact Brian via his website, and it does have his phone number there. You can contact him that way as well. We encourage you to visit his website and also to come back and visit us again for future webinars and to pass on this information to family and friends. I know that if it's been helpful to you, it will be vastly helpful to them as well, and they will appreciate it. So again, thank you for coming, attending, listening, and we hope that you have a wonderful day. Thank you.